Usually watching, I know exactly when my time's coming, but very interested in listening to what the responses that you had were, and there's some things I want to follow down, continue up on. But first, I want to thank all of you for your support of the legislation, and certainly, I think most people here agree, and I certainly agree, that we don't want to be here picking winners and losers. But there's so much more that can be done, just sort of to set out the environment, create the environment, because there's so many government. I think that's one of the things that I have faced with this bill is people say, well, just let the private sector be. But we all know, you all know, that there's a lot of ways that the government is impacting manufacturing already. It's just not doing it necessarily in a smart, thoughtful manner. So I thank all of you for the support of the bill. I look forward to trying out this cup, and tomorrow morning when I drink a cup of tea, I'll put the hot water in there and test that out. So thank you, Dr. Rich and Ms. Wince-Smith. Thank you for all of your work with the Council on Competitiveness. And we work together on a lot of manufacturing issues. And I think it's very important that you raise technologically advanced manufacturing here, because I think a lot of people, when they think about manufacturing, they don't think about advanced manufacturing and about new technology and the opportunities that are available, and more being made available every day, especially through the great research and development that's going on in this country at private industry and also in our research universities and national labs. And so I think that's very important that people don't just think about manufacturing as what we've done in the past, although we don't want to abandon that. We want to continue to do that type of manufacturing, but we also have to look to the future. I want to follow up on one of the points that Dr. Rich had said about education and workforce. Mr. Mottl, in your testimony, you mentioned that the Tooling and Manufacturing Association of Illinois has a new program, the Bridge Work and Pathways Initiative, focused on augmenting the manufacturing training programs of 48 of Illinois community colleges. Can you tell us a bit more about this initiative and its goals? Because obviously this is something that we all understand is critical right now, and some people look out there and say, how could you possibly have a shortage of qualified workers in anything with our high unemployment? But I hear that from manufacturers all the time, is the difficulty in finding qualified workers. So Mr. Mottl, can you tell us about that program, anything else you want to talk about in that area?
Thank you. Yeah, well, the Bridgework and Pathways program is, our goal is to get a kind of a standard curriculum going among the 48 community colleges. So I, as a manufacturer, know that if you have a certification in 5-axis precision machining, it's a standard program, and I know what I'm getting when I hire an employee. Also, to help build enthusiasm for these type of programs. A lot of times, parents don't want their children to go into these programs, and I would really love to see from the federal government, the Department of Education, revalue these training programs. What we find with students who go into them and ultimately come to work for my member companies is that they like to come and go from the program. They'll come and they'll take some courses, they'll get a certificate, and then they'll work for a little bit, but they'll come back and take some more classes and layer that together. So what we're trying to do is develop a set of stackable credentials that can add up ultimately to a degree. Maybe you take some capstone courses or some humanities courses, and they end up with a degree. So the whole time they're working, they're earning a living with one of our member companies, hopefully, and earning a degree that will ultimately add up to whether it's an associate's degree or a 4-year college degree. But we've just found that in general, the programs were very fragmented. Everybody had a different program, and it didn't necessarily jive with what manufacturers like myself wanted out of the program. So that's what we're doing with Bridgeworks and Bridgeways and Pathways.
Thank you, and I will yield back the rest of my time, and hopefully we'll have a chance to ask a few more questions. I'm tempted to just use the 5 minutes and ask Ms. Wince-Smith to continue to say all these great things about engineers. As one of less than a dozen engineers in Congress, I'd like hearing the importance of engineers and engineering. But I'm going to have a general question first for Mr. Mottl, then Dr. Rich, and then Ms. Wince-Smith, what you can add to that. The question is, in your opinion, what can the federal government do? I know, Mr. Mottl, we've talked about issues with the state, but leave those off the table. What could the federal government do to make your business more competitive?
Well, you know, a lot of business owners will just stay out of the way, and you know that is important. But setting a level playing field and setting a good table, I like to use the analogy of a buffet. If you set a great buffet out, we'll all come and eat. So, you know, whether it's the tax policy, energy policy, if we have good, stable planning and policies, I can build my business around that. If I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, whether it's the R&D credit or energy policy, we sell a lot of products into the oil and gas production industry. Is that industry going to be growing like it's growing now, or is it going to change in a few years? It's very hard. So stability is important. From my perspective, transportation is really important too. The federal government does a lot for transportation. I'm constantly moving goods in, bringing in raw materials, and shipping out finished goods. So I need a good, stable transportation network that's well maintained. Of course, you know, we talked about the IP theft and trade issues. You know, I saw what happened in the telecom and electronics industry. My company historically built mechanical switching. Western Electric was our customer, then AT&T, and all throughout. But I saw what happened when we kind of opened the doors and bought the cheapest product we could buy. We lost a lot of the value that we added here in the U.S. when it went, you know, to the lowest cost country. So I think sometimes some government policies need to look at you know, what is worthwhile to be building here? What is the cost of it? You know, you can pay less for a product, but the value maybe isn't there because you didn't get the jobs, you didn't get the growth, you didn't get the tax from you know, those jobs and that sale of the product. So a little bit smarter planning maybe on trade issues I think would be important for businesses like mine as well.
Dr. Rich? Again, I think first and foremost, the most important thing, which again is being addressed in this bill, is the investment in people. Beyond that, I would say, look, the appropriate balance of regulation is also important. Let me give you a specific example. My personal view is that we're on the cusp of one of the greatest industrial revolutions here in the United States that we've seen since maybe the beginning of the 20th century with the development of North American shale gas. The sheer extraction of the energy, the lower costs will create thousands of jobs, but the secondary industries, which create new materials, new products based on that, will create even more jobs. We have to be able to develop this infrastructure and simultaneously protect the air and the water that we all need. I always view that as the concept of responsible progress. We can make responsible progress and develop these natural resources. It's going to require a lot of new technologies. I don't accept the fact that it can't be done and not simultaneously protect the environment. There's a tremendous opportunity for new technology there, but we also have to have balanced regulations to make sure that we can take advantage of these resources. This could be the greatest industrial revolution that we've seen, certainly in my lifetime, and it will create an enormous number of jobs.
Thank you. Ms. Wince-Smith, anything you want to add to that?
I would just add, you know, I fully endorse what my two colleagues here have said. You know, the whole issue of America going from being a country that's energy weak to energy strong as we lead the transformations to a low-carbon world in the future is so important. But one thing the government can do that no one else can do is to really capitalize in a systems way these transformations in the science and technology and their deployment. You know, if we can be the country that, you know, develops and manufactures at scale non-lithium batteries, if we can be the country that, you know, sets the standards for additive manufacturing production, we know what the future is beginning to look like. And there are ways in which if we capture not just the research, but the deployment here, it will be huge. And so this bill is very important because it talks about an integrative strategy. Defense Department has huge needs and capabilities here If you link that with NSF and DOE and the other parts of the government with the cap, it's just, we have tremendous potential. So connecting the dots, you all have in the government the capacity to do that, and the private sector will really come to the table as well.
Great, thank you.